Great. I'm excited to continue telling you the story. Let's explore this new journey together. Not again with your daughter, Alvaro? Not again with your daughter, Alvaro? Leticia's voice cut through the silence of the boardroom like a knife. Alvaro Mendez squeezed Sophie's hand as all eyes turned to them. The 6-year-old, with her unicorn backpack and wrinkled blue dress, partially hid behind his leg. My nanny canceled last minute, Alvaro replied, maintaining his composure as he walked to the only empty chair at the long mahogany table. Don't worry, she won't interrupt. Leticia Fuentes, the CFO, exchanged glances with other executives. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Of course, we understand your special circumstances, she said with false sympathy. But this is the 3rd time this month. Perhaps you should consider more permanent solutions. The CEO, Guillermo Vega, cleared his throat. Let's continue with the presentation. Alvaro, you have the 2nd quarter numbers. Alvaro took out his tablet as he settled Sophie in a chair against the wall. He handed her his phone with cartoons playing silently and small headphones. As you can see from the chart, Alvaro began, projecting the data. Our sales have increased by 17% compared to last year, but operating costs. Excuse me, Leticia interrupted. Can we trust these numbers? I heard you had to finish the report while taking your daughter to the dentist. The room fell silent. My numbers are accurate, Leticia, Alvaro replied in a controlled voice. If you have specific doubts about any figure, I'd be happy to clarify them. The meeting continued in a tense atmosphere. Every time Sophie made the slightest noise, Leticia shot disapproving glances. Alvaro maintained his professionalism, but the tension in his jaw revealed his growing frustration. As the meeting ended, Leticia approached Alvaro as he packed his documents. You know we appreciate you very much, but this situation... She glanced towards Sophie, who was quietly drawing. Not all directors can afford to mix family and work. What do you suggest then? Alvaro asked, his patience wearing thin. Perhaps this isn't the right time for you to hold such a crucial position. We could talk to Guillermo about temporarily reorganizing your responsibilities. For the good of the company and the child, of course. Alvaro closed his briefcase with more force than necessary. I appreciate your concern, Leticia, but I can perfectly manage my work and my family. Evidently, she replied with a forced smile before leaving. Alvaro ran a hand through his hair. He looked at his watch. Noon. Come on, Sophie. I'll treat you to something nice to eat. Instead of going to the expensive restaurant near the office, Alvaro drove to a small, humble eatery 15 minutes away. He didn't want to run into any more colleagues. Welcome. A young woman greeted them with a genuine smile. Table for 2? Alvaro nodded, noticing the waitress's tired but kind eyes. Her name tag read, Clara. A glimmer of kindness. Meeting Clara. They had barely sat down when Sophie began to fidget. Daddy, I'm hungry now, she complained, tapping the table with her crayon. Clara approached with the menus and noticed Alvaro's exhausted expression. Hello, little one, what's your name? She asked, bending down to Sophie's height. Sofia Mendez Robles, the girl replied, suddenly shy. What a beautiful name. You know what? Clara continued. While your dad decides what you're going to eat, how about I tell you a secret about this table? Sophie's eyes widened with curiosity. What secret? Clara lowered her voice conspiratorially. This table is made from the wood of a magic tree. If you draw on this special tablecloth, she said, placing a paper tablecloth in front of her, your food will arrive faster and taste better. Sophie immediately began drawing with total concentration. Alvaro looked at Clara with gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. No problem, Clara replied with a tired but authentic smile. What can I get you to drink? As Clara took their order, Alvaro noticed that she spoke with a clarity and precision uncommon in the restaurant. When she returned with their drinks, he couldn't help but ask, Have you always worked here? Clara looked at him briefly, evaluating him. No, I'm studying industrial engineering. Or you were studying. I'm on a temporary break. Last year, She nodded, surprised by his perceptiveness. How did you know? I recognized that almost there. Look, Alvaro replied with a small smile. I see it every morning in my mirror. Clara returned his smile, a brief moment of complicity, before going to get their food. During the meal, Alvaro observed how Clara managed the restaurant. Efficient, attentive, solving problems before they arose. She reminded him of himself before everything became so complicated. When paying the bill, Sophie proudly showed her drawing to Clara. It's my daddy, me, and you, she explained, pointing to 3 smiling figures. Clara received the drawing with a warmth that made something inside Alvaro loosen for the first time in a long time. It's the best gift I've received today, Clara said, carefully folding the paper and putting it in her pocket. As they left, Alvaro couldn't help but look back one more time. Clara was already attending to another table, but for a moment their gazes met, and both knew they would see each other again. An unlikely proposal, a chance encounter. Alvaro pushed open the door of the eatery 3 days later. He hadn't been able to get the conversation with Clara out of his head. He scanned the place until he found her serving coffee at a back table. Table for 2? Another waiter asked. No, I'm alone, Alvaro replied, adjusting his tie. Could I sit in Clara's section? The waiter raised an eyebrow but led him to an empty table. Minutes later, Clara appeared with her notepad in hand. Well, what a surprise, she said, not hiding her astonishment. And the little artist? At school. I took advantage of my lunch break to come. Clara looked at him curiously. Since when do executives cross half the city to eat at a humble eatery? Since they find more interesting conversations here than in their luxurious offices, Alvaro replied with a shy smile. Clara sat across from him during her break, while Alvaro devoured some chilaquiles. They chatted like old friends. So you only have 1 semester left? Alvaro asked. And the thesis? Clara added, playing with the napkin. But tuition went up, my mom got sick. You know how life is. I had to work full-time. And you haven't thought about scholarships or? I tried everything, she interrupted him firmly. I don't need you to tell me what I already know. I'll go back when I've saved enough. Alvaro raised his hands in surrender. Just asking. I didn't mean to sound condescending. The atmosphere tensed slightly. Clara looked at her watch. My break's over. Anything else you want to order? Just the bill. As Clara walked away, Alvaro noticed her attending to a group of American tourists. To his surprise, Clara switched to perfect, unaccented English. She took the complex order with ease, joking and making recommendations as if she had lived in the United States all her life. When she returned with the bill, Alvaro couldn't contain his curiosity. Your English is impressive. My grandmother was from Chicago, Clara explained. She raised me speaking both languages. Alvaro took a deep breath, like someone preparing to jump into the void. I have a proposal, he said, taking out a business card. We urgently need someone to help with some translations for foreign investors. It would be freelance, temporary work, well paid. Clara took the card, examining it skeptically. Mendez Technologies. Are you the owner? Director of Operations, he corrected her. My older brother is the CEO. Clara put the card in her apron. Why me? You barely know me. I saw how you handled those customers, Alvaro replied sincerely. You're fluid, intelligent, and you don't get intimidated. Plus, I have to confess something. We're desperate. Our translator quit yesterday, and we have the meeting in 3 days. Clara let out an incredulous laugh. So I'm your plan B? Technically plan D, Alvaro admitted with a wry smile. But after seeing you talk to those tourists, I think you should have been plan A. Clara bit her lower lip, considering the offer. How much do you pay? Alvaro wrote a figure on a napkin. Clara's eyes widened for a second before she regained her composure. It's considerable. It's fair for specialized and urgent work, he replied. What do you say? Clara looked around the eatery. The owner was yelling orders from the kitchen. A child had spilled their soda, and she had been on her feet for 12 hours. There's one problem, she finally said. I don't have appropriate clothes for a company like yours. Alvaro smiled, relieved. That's an easy fix. And something else? Clara added, her gaze hardening. If I accept, it will be because of my ability, not out of pity, or because it's your charity. If I don't work out, you tell me directly and I'll leave. Deal, Alvaro replied, extending his hand, facing the corporate world, a viral defense. The next day, Clara nervously entered the imposing glass building of Mendez Technologies. The receptionist looked her up and down, evaluating her newly bought blouse and carefully ironed second-hand skirt. Clara Jimenez? Mr. Mendez is waiting for you on the 18th floor. In the elevator, Clara mentally reviewed everything she knew about the company. She had researched until dawn, memorizing technical terms and exploring the corporate website. The doors opened, revealing a floor bustling with activity. Alvaro was waiting for her with a tablet in his hand. You arrived just in time, he greeted her. We have a lot of work. He led her through cubicles to a small conference room, where 3 people were reviewing documents. Team, this is Clara Jimenez, our temporary salvation. Alvaro introduced her. Clara, this is Martin, Daniela, and Ricardo, the international development team. The 3 greeted her with varying degrees of interest. Daniela especially eyed her critically. What experience do you have in technical translations? She asked bluntly. Clara straightened her back. None, she replied honestly. But I have translated engineering manuals as part of my studies and volunteer work. Before Daniela could retort, Alvaro intervened. I remind you that we are against the clock. Clara is here because we need her. Let's get to work. They handed her a pile of documents and set her up at a small temporary desk. Clara adjusted her glasses and immersed herself in the work, determined to prove she deserved to be there. In the distance, an elegant woman watched the scene from her office. Leticia squinted when she saw Alvaro lean in to explain something to Clara. Who is that? She asked her assistant. A temporary translator, according to Human Resources. Leticia snorted. What is a woman like her doing here? She murmured, closing her office blinds with a sharp gesture. Clara had been working as a temporary assistant for 2 weeks. What started as a simple translation had become a support position for the international development team. During the day, she navigated between technical documents and executive meetings. At night, she was still at the eatery serving tables until midnight. You look exhausted, Daniela commented as they shared a coffee in the break room. Are you still working at the restaurant? Clara nodded, hiding a yawn. I need the money. Plus, we don't know how long this will last. You should talk to Alvaro, Daniela suggested, who had gone from initial distrust to cautious respect. You could stay permanently. You're good. I prefer they offer it to me if I deserve it, Clara replied. Martin rushed into the room. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes. The Canadians moved their visit up. They're arriving at the airport. Clara jumped out of her seat. But the presentation isn't finished. Well, we'd better finish it, Martin said. Alvaro is looking for you like crazy. He found her at her small desk, frantically reviewing the slides. Don't worry, Alvaro told her, noticing her distress. They only need a summary today. The full presentation will be tomorrow. No, I can finish it now, Clara insisted. I just need half an hour. Alvaro looked at her with admiration. 30 minutes then. While Clara worked, Sophie appeared in the office. Since that day at the restaurant, she had developed a special affection for Clara. Clara! The girl exclaimed, running to her. Look what I drew. She showed her a drawing with 3 figures. Daddy, me, and Clara. It's beautiful, Sophie, Clara smiled, hugging her briefly. Can I save it for later? I'm finishing something important. Sophie nodded and sat down to color quietly while Clara finalized the document. From the hallway, Leticia watched the scene with disgust. She approached Alvaro, who was supervising preparations for the meeting. Alvaro, can we talk for a moment? She led him to a secluded corner. I don't want to interfere, but this situation with your temporary assistant, and your daughter is generating comments. What comments? Alvaro asked, tensing. You know how people are. They see a young woman getting close to a widowed executive with a child and they draw conclusions. Letitia lowered her voice. It's not professional to mix personal with professional. There's nothing personal between Clara and me, Alvaro replied dryly. She's a competent employee. Are you sure? Because she seems to have very quickly earned a place here and with Sophie. Alvaro took a deep breath. I appreciate your concern, Letitia, but I know how to separate my personal life from work. The meeting with the Canadians was tense but productive. Clara translated each exchange with precision and added cultural context when necessary. The investors were impressed. At the end, as they collected documents, Letitia approached Clara with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Impressive for someone with no formal experience, she said, with a tone that bordered on condescending. Where did you say you studied? At the National University, Industrial Engineering, Clara replied calmly. Though I didn't finish. Ah, of course. Letitia broadened her artificial smile. It's admirable how some people can advance without the proper credentials. I suppose you have other talents. Clara felt the heat rise to her cheeks. But before she could respond, Ricardo intervened. Clara was crucial today. We should consider her for the expansion project. Letitia's expression hardened. The expansion project requires experience and preparation, not just goodwill. She looked at Clara. I have nothing against you personally, but we don't have time for mistakes at this stage. The next day, at the final meeting with the Canadians, Letitia subtly interrupted every time Clara spoke. Small comments like, perhaps we should consult someone with more experience, or, allow me to clarify what we're trying to say, undermined her confidence. During a break, Clara went out into the hallway to get some air. Alvaro followed her. Don't let it get to you, he told her. She's intimidated because you're better than she expected. I don't need you to defend me, Clara replied, though grateful. I can handle this. I know. I just wanted you to know that I see what's happening. They returned to the room just as Letitia was explaining something to the investors. The problem is that some people don't understand the complexity of the business, she was saying. It takes more than good presentation and personal appeal. The implication was clear. Several executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Alvaro felt his blood boil. Unable to contain himself, he intervened. What's needed, Letitia, is talent and intelligence, not years accumulating a position without contributing fresh ideas. His voice echoed in the room. Clara has shown more value in 2 weeks than others in years. If you can't appreciate that, perhaps the problem isn't her. A deathly silence fell over the room. Clara paled. The investors seemed fascinated by the unexpected drama. What no one noticed was a junior assistant's phone discreetly recording the scene from a side angle. That night, Clara received a message from Alvaro. I'm sorry about today. I overreacted. She replied after thinking about it. Thanks, but I don't need you to fight my battles. I just need a fair chance. At home, Alvaro looked at Sophie sleeping, hugging a drawing of the two of them with Clara. He wondered at what point his plan to hire a temporary translator had become so complicated. Meanwhile, somewhere in the company, someone was editing a video that would change everything. Viral sensation and a new opportunity. Clara's phone vibrated incessantly at 6:30 in the morning. 15 WhatsApp notifications, 7 missed calls, and a message from Daniela. Did you see it? You're everywhere. Clara sat up sharply in her small bed. She opened the link Daniela had sent her, and there it was. The video of Alvaro defending her against Letitia had gone viral. Someone had uploaded it to TikTok with the title "Boss Defends Employee from Classist Attacks." The exact moment. Shit, Clara muttered, jumping out of bed. At the office, the atmosphere was strange. Some greeted her with knowing smiles. Others avoided her gaze. When she reached her desk, Martin and Ricardo discreetly applauded. Our celebrity, Ricardo joked. You already have a fan club on Twitter. This isn't funny, Clara replied mortified. Where's Alvaro? In an emergency meeting with the executive committee, Martin explained. The video has over 1 million views. Journalists are calling for comments. Clara sank into her chair. Her phone rang. It was a message from her mother. Daughter, is that you in the video? Even your aunts are sharing it. The boardroom door opened. Alvaro emerged with a tense expression, followed by several executives in suits. Among them, Guillermo Vega, the CEO, and an older man Clara recognized as Eduardo Mendez, the company's founder and Alvaro's older brother. Leticia came out last, her face pale and rigid. Alvaro walked directly to Clara. "We need to talk," he said, guiding her to an empty meeting room. Once alone, Alvaro ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry I got you into this mess," he began. "I never thought someone would record that, much less upload it to the internet." "Don't apologize to me," Clara replied. "Your position is at risk for defending me." Alvaro shook his head. "Surprisingly, no." He showed her his phone. The video has generated a wave of support for the company. Thousands of comments praised Mendez Technologies for defending meritocracy and standing against corporate classism. The stock had risen 3% that morning. "The marketing department wants to capitalize on this," Alvaro continued. "I told them I'd talk to you first." Clara looked at him incredulously. "They want to use this as publicity? They want you to be the face of a new initiative," Alvaro explained. "Talent without barriers or something like that." Clara stood up, indignant. "Are you telling me they want to turn me into their corporate Cinderella story? The waitress who became an executive?" "Not exactly," Alvaro tried to calm her. "The executive committee was impressed with your work. The expansion project into Latin America needs someone with your perspective and skills. They're offering you the lead." Clara was speechless. "But why me? There are more qualified people." "Because you proved you can handle pressure, that you understand both worlds, and frankly, because right now the public is on your side." Alvaro was sincere. "It's a unique opportunity." The door opened and Eduardo Mendez entered. "Miss Jimenez," he greeted in a grave voice. "My brother has spoken highly of you, even before this incident." Clara straightened up, nervous but dignified. "Mr. Mendez, the board has approved your permanent hiring," Eduardo continued. "But we need an answer today. The press is waiting." Clara looked at Alvaro, then at Eduardo. "With one condition," she finally said. "I want to be evaluated exclusively by my performance. No special treatment. No publicity about my inspiring story. I am a professional, not a charity case." Eduardo smiled, impressed. "I like your attitude. Anything else?" "Yes," Clara added. "I want to finish my degree. I'll work full-time, but I need flexibility to attend night classes." "Deal." Eduardo extended his hand. "Welcome officially to Mendez Technologies." That afternoon, the company issued a sober statement announcing the new expansion project and Clara Jimenez's appointment as team leader. It made no mention of the viral video or her previous work as a waitress. As Clara collected her things from the eatery for the last time, her boss gave her a strong hug. "I always knew you were destined for something great," he said with paternal pride. "You're going to shine, little one." In the parking lot, Alvaro was waiting for her with Sophie. "Ready for your new life?" Clara smiled, nervous but excited. "Ready to prove I deserve this opportunity." Sophie ran to her and handed her a handmade card. "Here, it's for you." Clara opened it and felt a lump in her throat. Inside, in childish handwriting, Sophie had written, "Congratulations, Clara," and below had asked her teacher how to write something special. "Is it spelled like this? Mommy Clara?" Clara looked at Alvaro, who shrugged with an embarrassed smile. "It wasn't my idea, I swear." Clara knelt and hugged Sophie, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. "Thank you, little one. It's the best gift I've received." As they drove to Clara's apartment, none of the three knew that this was only the beginning of their story together. A story that even the best screenwriter couldn't have written. In her office, Leticia observed the press release with a grim expression. She dialed a number on her phone. "I need you to investigate everything about Clara Jimenez," she ordered. Every last detail, because for Letitia this wasn't the end, but only the first round. Climbing higher, a new title, old rivals. 6 months later, Clara presented the results of the expansion project to the executive committee. Her team had exceeded all expectations, opening markets in Colombia and Chile in record time. As you can see from the chart, Clara explained confidently, not only did we meet the established goals, but we exceeded them by 23%. The local adaptation of the product was key. Eduardo Mendez nodded in approval. Beside him, Guillermo Vega took enthusiastic notes. Letitia, sitting in the back, maintained an impassive expression. Impressive, Clara, Eduardo said when the presentation ended. What's your next step? Brazil, she replied without hesitation. It's the natural market for our expansion. We have the foundations ready and contacts established. The meeting ended with applause. As the executives left, Alvaro approached Clara. Congratulations, he said proudly. You've proven my brother was right to trust you. Thanks, but it was teamwork, Clara replied, putting away her documents. How's Sophie? Missing you, asking when you'll come for dinner again. Clara smiled. Since her appointment, she had spent many nights working late, but she always made time for Sophie. The girl had become an important part of her life. Tell her this weekend for sure, she promised. Guillermo approached, interrupting the conversation. Clara, the board has decided to create a new position, Coordinator of Strategic Development. We want you to fill it. Clara blinked in surprise. Me? But I just started with the company. And you've achieved more in 6 months than many have in years, Guillermo replied. Plus, your story inspires others. I'd prefer my story not be mentioned, Clara said firmly. I want to be recognized for my work, not where I come from. Of course, Guillermo nodded. Though you should know that several universities have asked if you would give talks about your experience, especially for engineering students who work and study. Clara became thoughtful. She had always refused interviews about her personal life, but perhaps this was different. I'll think about it, she finally said. That night, after dinner with Alvaro and Sophie, both adults remained in the living room while the girl slept. I can't believe how much everything has changed in such a short time, Clara commented, looking out the window of Alvaro's luxurious apartment. Sometimes I wonder if I deserve all this. You deserve it, Alvaro affirmed, pouring 2 glasses of wine. You work harder than anyone. You've even gone back to university. Clara smiled. Indeed, she had resumed her studies at night. It's exhausting, but it's worth it, she admitted. I only have 1 semester and my thesis left. Alvaro looked at her with admiration. You're incredible, you know? I don't know anyone with your determination. Their gazes met for a moment, and something shifted between them. A comfortable silence settled, full of unspoken possibilities. Clara's phone interrupted the moment. It was Daniela. Clara, you have to see this, she said agitatedly. Letitia gave an interview. She's talking about you. Clara turned on the TV. On a business program, Letitia smiled with false amiability. Of course I support female talent, she said. But I worry when companies prioritize image over experience. We all want inspiring stories. But at what cost? The interviewer nodded. Are you referring to the case of Clara Jimenez at Mendez Technologies? I won't mention names, Letitia replied with feigned discretion. I'm just saying that sustainable success requires more than good personal relationships or going viral on social media. Clara turned off the TV, furious. She's implying that my promotion was because of you, she told Alvaro. That I took advantage of our friendship. No one will believe that, Alvaro replied, though he was also annoyed. Your results speak for themselves. The ultimate vindication. A partner's offer and a family's embrace. The next day, Clara was called to Eduardo's office. To her surprise, Letitia was also there. I've heard disturbing rumors, Eduardo began. And I saw last night's interview. Clara stood firm. Mr. Mendez, my numbers speak for me. I don't need to defend myself from insinuations. Precisely why I called you, Eduardo replied dryly. Not to question you, but to inform you that Letitia has requested a period of personal reflection. Letitia paled. But, Eduardo, I only expressed legitimate concerns. Without evidence, Eduardo replied coldly. This company is based on results, not hallway gossip. Clara has proven her worth. You, on the other hand, have been more occupied with internal politics than with your work. Letitia left the office with her head held high but humiliated. In the hallway, she looked at Clara with cold hatred. This isn't over, she murmured before leaving. Eduardo turned to Clara. Alvaro has proposed something to me. He wants you to be his partner in a new project. He says you have the vision he needs. Partner? Clara asked, astonished. But I don't have the capital or the experience to. He'll give you the details, Eduardo interrupted with a smile. I just wanted you to know that he has my blessing. This company needs new blood. That afternoon, Alvaro invited her to dinner to discuss the project. Upon arriving at the restaurant, Clara noticed it was much more elegant than any place she had been before. Partners? Clara asked once they were seated. Is this serious or just to silence rumors? It's completely serious, Alvaro replied. But I'll understand if you want to refuse. I know you want to do things on your own. Clara looked at him intently, assessing his sincerity. Thank you, but no, she finally said. I want to earn every step. When I'm your partner, it will be because we both know I deserve it, not because you offer it to me. Alvaro smiled, admiring her determination once more. As you wish, but the offer still stands. His hand slowly moved closer to Clara's on the table. This time she didn't pull it away. The accusation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Clara was reviewing the progress of the Brazilian project when Daniela burst into her office. They just called an emergency meeting, she said breathlessly. Letitia filed a formal complaint against you. Clara dropped her pen. What kind of complaint? Conflict of interest, influence peddling, manipulation. Daniela lowered her voice. She's saying your relationship with Alvaro is the reason for your promotion. Clara stood up sharply. That's absurd. We only started dating a few weeks ago, long after my appointment. I know, but she's been collecting evidence for months. Photographs of you dining, text messages she obtained somehow. She's determined to sink you. In the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. The company's ethics committee was present, along with Eduardo, Guillermo, and other directors. Letitia, sitting on the other side of the table, smiled subtly. Alvaro looked furious. Miss Jimenez, the committee president began, we are here to investigate serious accusations about your professional conduct. Ms. Fuentes has presented documentation that suggests a pattern of undue favoritism. I understand, Clara replied with forced calm. May I see that documentation? They handed her a folder. Inside were photos of her and Alvaro leaving restaurants, screenshots of text messages manipulated to appear inappropriate, and a timeline that suggested their relationship had begun long before her hiring. This is taken out of context, Clara said, maintaining her composure. And some of these messages have been edited. Letitia intervened. Why would I lie? I have nothing personal against Clara. I'm only concerned about the integrity of our company. Eduardo Mendez, who had remained silent, finally spoke. What exactly is your accusation, Letitia? That Clara manipulated her way to the top by taking advantage of Alvaro's vulnerability as a widower with a small child, Letitia responded. And that her inexperience is costing the company. Alvaro slammed his fist on the table. That's completely false. Clara rejected my partnership offer precisely to avoid these questions. Convenient public rejection, Letitia retorted. While in private. Enough, Eduardo interrupted her. Clara, do you have anything else to add? Clara took a deep breath. All eyes were on her. At that moment she remembered her mother's words. When in doubt of yourself, let your actions speak for you. Yes, she said, standing up. I request 30 minutes to prepare my response. The committee agreed. Clara quickly went to her office where Daniela, Ricardo, and Martin were waiting for her. I need the full reports of all our projects, Clara said, turning on her laptop, and the exact growth numbers since I joined the team. For half an hour, the small group worked frantically. When Clara returned to the boardroom, she carried a digital presentation and folders for each committee member. Gentlemen, I have been accused of reaching my position through inappropriate means, she began in a firm voice. Allow me to show you how I really got here. She projected a results graph. Since I joined the company, projects under my direction have generated a 34% increase in revenue. Our operations in Colombia exceeded projections by 23% and in Chile by 17%. She switched to another graph. I implemented a new logistics system that reduced operating costs by 12%. Every decision is documented, every success measurable. Clara continued presenting concrete data for 20 minutes. Finally, she reached her conclusion. I am not here because of Alvaro Mendez. I am here because of this. She pointed to the results. If my personal relationship with him, which indeed only began 3 weeks ago, is a problem for the company, I am willing to give up one of the two things, and it will not be my job. A profound silence fell over the room. Eduardo Mendez was the first to speak. Impressive defense, Clara, he said with admiration. Does anyone have any more questions? No one spoke. Leticia seemed to have shrunk in her chair. In that case, Eduardo continued, I consider the accusations unfounded. This matter is closed. He turned to Leticia. As for you, I think it's time for you to take that period of personal reflection we mentioned. 3 months, unpaid leave. Leticia paled. You can't do that. I've been with this company for 15 years. Precisely why I expected more professionalism from you, Eduardo replied coldly. Your history has saved you from immediate dismissal. There will not be a second chance. A new beginning, love, family, and legacy. After the meeting, Clara returned to her office, exhausted but victorious. Alvaro followed her. That was brilliant, he said, closing the door. You shut everyone up. Clara sank into her chair. It was humiliating to have to defend myself like that, as if I needed to prove my worth. I know, Alvaro approached. If you want, we can keep our relationship private until... No, Clara interrupted him. I won't hide as if we're doing something wrong. We'll simply be professional at work, period. Alvaro smiled, once again admiring her determination. My brother wants to talk to you, he said, changing the subject. I think he's going to offer you a direct partnership. Clara shook her head. Tell him I appreciate it, but my answer remains the same. When I get there, I want it to be on my own merits, not as a consolation prize after this circus. Do you know why I like you so much? Alvaro asked, leaning towards her. Because you never take the easy road. The easy road never leads anywhere worth going, Clara replied with a small smile. That afternoon, Eduardo Mendez announced changes in management. Leticia would take her leave immediately. Clara would maintain her position with expanded responsibilities. And surprisingly, Alvaro requested to reduce his executive functions to dedicate himself to a new innovation project. No one mentioned the true reason. Alvaro wanted to eliminate any future conflict of interest. If he was not Clara's direct superior, no one could question their relationship. When Clara left the building that night, she found Sophie waiting for her in the lobby with her father. Clara! The girl shouted, running to her. It's true you beat the evil witch. Clara couldn't help but laugh. There are no evil witches, honey. Just complicated people. But you won, right? Sophie insisted. Clara looked at Alvaro, who shrugged with an embarrassed smile. Yes, Sophie, she finally replied. This time I won. Are you sure you want to do this? Alvaro asked as Clara placed the last box in the apartment's entryway. We still have time to reconsider. Clara looked around. Alvaro's spacious apartment now had obvious touches of her presence. Engineering books next to novels on the shelves, a small plant by the window, and, on the fridge, a new family schedule that included her night classes. I'm sure, she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. But I still think it's too soon. 8 months had passed since the incident with Letitia. Her relationship with Alvaro had progressed naturally, and Clara's visits had become so frequent that moving in together seemed like the logical next step. Still, Clara felt dizzy. Clara! Sophie's voice echoed from her room. Can I put your pictures on my wall now? Clara exchanged a look with Alvaro before heading to the girl's room. Sophie, now 7 years old, had prepared a special space on her family photo wall. Where should we put them? Clara asked, holding the photos Sophie had carefully selected. Clara at her high school graduation, Clara and Sophie at the park, and a recent one of the three of them at the beach. Here. Sophie pointed to a space next to photos of her deceased mother. Mommy is here, and you can be next to her. Is that okay? Clara felt a lump in her throat. The naturalness with which Sophie integrated the memory of her mother with Clara's presence deeply moved her. It's perfect, little one, she replied, hugging her. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Clara and Alvaro sat on the balcony with 2 cups of tea. I never thought I'd be here, Clara confessed, looking at the city lights. A year ago, I was waiting tables and studying formulas until dawn. Alvaro took her hand. Do you regret anything? Not for a second, she replied without hesitation. But sometimes I'm afraid that everything is too perfect. You know? Like I'm going to wake up at any moment. It's not perfect, Alvaro smiled. Tomorrow we'll argue about why I left clothes on the floor or why you work too much. Real life always finds a way to remind us it's not a fairy tale. Clara laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. You're right, and I'm glad it is. Adapting to life together had its challenges. Clara maintained a frantic pace. She led the expansion project during the day, attended classes 3 nights a week, and dedicated weekends to Sophie. Alvaro, for his part, had reduced his hours at the office to focus on his new innovation project. One Sunday morning, while Clara studied at the dining table surrounded by books and notes, Sophie approached with a drawing. Look, Clara, it's our family. The drawing showed 3 figures, Daddy, me, and Clara. But this time, Clara noticed something different. Above her figure, Sophie had written in shaky letters, Mommy Clara. It's very beautiful, honey, Clara said softly. But you know I'm not your mom, right? Your mom was a wonderful person who loved you very much. Sophie nodded seriously. I know. My first mom is in heaven. But you're my second mom, the one who's here. Does it bother you if I call you that? Clara looked at Alvaro, who was watching the scene from the kitchen with shining eyes. It doesn't bother me, she finally replied. It honors me, but it's something very important, and I want you to be sure. I'm sure, Sophie affirmed with the unwavering certainty of children. I've already decided. From that day on, Mommy Clara became a term used naturally in the house, first only by Sophie, then occasionally by Alvaro. Clara, who had always struggled to define her own place in the world, found unexpected peace in this new role that didn't erase the past, but built upon it. At the company, Clara continued to ascend on her own merits. Her expansion project in Brazil was so successful that other divisions began to adopt her methodology. Eduardo Mendez regularly invited her to strategic meetings, valuing her fresh perspective. One afternoon, as she was leaving the university after a particularly intense class, she found a young woman waiting for her. Excuse me, are you Clara Jimenez? She asked shyly. I'm Mariana, a first-year engineering student. I heard your talk last month. Clara nodded, surprised. She had given a presentation about her experience as a working student at a professor's request. I wanted to tell you that you inspired me not to give up, Mariana continued. I work at a call center to pay for college, and I was about to give up when I heard you speak. I'm glad I helped you, Clara replied, genuinely moved. Can I give you a piece of advice? Form a study group. It's the only thing that saved me when I was working and studying. I already did, Mariana smiled. In fact, we named it after you, the Claras. There are 5 of us girls in similar situations. Clara returned home that night thoughtful. She had never sought to be a role model, but she had apparently become one. At dinner, she told Alvaro about the encounter. "You should be proud," he said. "You're changing lives." "I don't want to be a symbol or an inspiring story," Clara replied. "I just want to do my job and finish my degree." Alvaro looked at her with tenderness. "Sometimes we don't choose the impact we have on others. It just happens." That night, as she watched Alvaro sleep, Clara reflected on how her life had changed. She had a home with names on the refrigerator door: Alvaro, Sophie, and Clara. She had a job that challenged and respected her. And soon she would have her university degree. It wasn't perfect. There were difficult days, arguments over trivial things, and moments of doubt. But it was real, and it was hers. She didn't know that she would soon face her greatest challenge. One that would test everything she had built. The graduation and a new vision. The auditorium was packed. Family, friends, and students of the industrial engineering class of 2025 eagerly awaited the culminating moment of the graduation ceremony. Clara, dressed in her cap and gown, took deep breaths backstage. "Now we have the honor of presenting our distinguished speaker," the rector announced. "A student who exemplifies perseverance and excellence, who completed her degree while developing a successful professional career, Clara Jimenez." Applause resonated as Clara ascended the podium. In the front row, Alvaro smiled proudly with Sophie by his side, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Eduardo Mendez and Clara's work team were also present. Even her former boss from the eatery had come, discreetly wiping away tears of pride. Clara adjusted the microphone and looked at the audience. "When I was asked to give this speech, I thought about talking about perseverance or sacrifice," she began. "But today I want to talk about something more important: authenticity. Being true to oneself while pursuing one's dreams." She paused, meeting Alvaro's gaze. "Many know fragments of my story. The waitress who became an executive, the student who worked double shifts. Some consider it a modern fairy tale, where the prince opens magical doors." Clara smiled, shaking her head gently. "But the truth is simpler and more powerful. It wasn't love that opened the door. It was effort that allowed me to stay." Her words resonated in the silent auditorium. Opportunities may come in unexpected ways, but only talent, dedication, and authenticity allow us to seize them. No one can take away what you have earned through your own merit. That knowledge, that confidence in your ability, is what no one can take away from you. As she concluded her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. Sophie jumped excitedly while Alvaro applauded with undisguised pride. Later, during the small celebration at their apartment, Eduardo took Clara aside. "That was a touching speech," he said, "and timely, considering what I have to tell you." Clara looked at him with curiosity. "The board of directors has approved the creation of a new division of technological innovation," he continued. "But I just graduated. There are executives with decades of experience. None with your vision or your adaptability," Eduardo interrupted her. "Besides, it was Alvaro's idea. He said you were the only person capable of taking his project to the next phase." Clara looked for Alvaro. He was chatting animatedly with his university colleagues, oblivious to the conversation. "Won't there be problems because of our relationship?" Clara asked, remembering past incidents. Eduardo smiled. "We anticipated that concern. You will report directly to me, not Alvaro. He will work as an external consultant on the project. Everything completely transparent." The next day, news of Clara's appointment spread quickly. As expected, not everyone received it positively. In the company hallways, some murmured about favoritism and connections. A LinkedIn commentator wrote an article titled "Meritocracy or Corporate Romance," implying that Clara's relationship with the Mendez family was the true reason for her success. Alvaro was furious. "How dare they, after all you've accomplished?" "Let it go," Clara replied with serenity. "Words can't take away what I've earned. I said it in my speech, remember?" But the real test came 3 weeks later, when Clara presented her first major project as director, an artificial intelligence platform to optimize supply chains. The company auditorium was full of executives, specialized press, and, surprisingly, several former critics. Clara presented confidently, answering technical questions with precision and detail. At the end, she presented the results of the pilot phase. A 42% reduction in delivery times, 27% savings in logistical costs, and demand predictions with 94% accuracy. The numbers spoke for themselves. Even the toughest skeptics had to acknowledge the project's success. Mendez Technologies shares rose 8% the next day, and the specialized press proclaimed the platform revolutionary. Eduardo was euphoric. "You did it!" he exclaimed, hugging Clara. "I knew I wasn't wrong about you." "It was teamwork," she replied, true to her style. "Your team, your leadership," Eduardo insisted. "And now, no one can question your place here." That night, Clara arrived home late, exhausted but satisfied. She found Alvaro and Sophie waiting for her with a small surprise celebration. "Mommy Clara is a genius," Sophie shouted, running to hug her. "Dad says you invented something super important." Clara smiled, lifting the girl into her arms. "I didn't invent it alone, honey. Many people worked together to make it happen." Alvaro approached, kissing her gently. "Always downplaying yourself," he murmured against her hair. "Learn to enjoy your victories." Later, while Sophie slept, Clara and Alvaro contemplated the city from their balcony. "Remember when we met?" Alvaro asked. "The waitress who calmed my daughter with a story about a magic table." Clara smiled at the memory. "Who would have thought we'd end up here?" "I knew it that very day," Alvaro confessed. "I saw something in you. A spark, a determination that captivated me. And I thought you were another pretentious executive trying to impress a waitress," Clara joked. Alvaro laughed, but then became serious. "Clara, there's something I want to ask you." He knelt, taking a small box from his pocket. Clara held her breath. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "Well, not exactly." He opened the box. Inside was a key. "It's the deed to the house. I want to put it in all three of our names. You, me, and Sophie. A legal family in every sense." Clara looked at the key, then at Alvaro. "But there is one condition," he added with a nervous smile. "Eventually, I'd like there to be a ring involved too. When you're ready." Clara took the key, feeling its symbolic weight. "I'm ready now," she replied in a confident voice. "For everything." Sophie appeared in her pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Why are you awake?" she asked, slurring her words. Clara and Alvaro exchanged knowing glances. "We're planning our future, little one," Clara replied, extending her arms. Sophie snuggled between them, forming a small circle under the stars. "Will we be happy forever?" she asked innocently. Clara thought about the path she had traveled, the obstacles overcome, and those that would surely come. "We'll be real forever," she replied, kissing her forehead. "And that's much better." Epilogue. My family was not found. It was chosen. The ballroom of the Intercontinental Hotel shimmered with bright lights. Dozens of women in elegant suits chatted animatedly as they awaited the start of the Leading Women in Technology of Latin America 2024 ceremony. At the main table, Clara Jimenez mentally reviewed her speech while adjusting the bracelet Sophie had given her that morning for good luck. "You're nervous," observed Daniela, now director of international operations and a close friend. "I've never seen you like this before a presentation." Clara smiled. "It's different. This isn't about projects or numbers. It's personal." In the past 3 years, Clara had transformed Mendez Technologies' innovation division into an international benchmark. Her artificial intelligence platform for supply chains had been implemented in 12 countries, and under her leadership, the company had launched 3 revolutionary products. The most recent, a renewable energy system for rural communities, had earned her this nomination. "Where are Alvaro and Sophie?" Daniela asked, scanning the room. "They'll arrive during dinner," Clara replied. Sophie had a school presentation, and Alvaro promised to record the whole thing. The presenter took the stage, starting the event. "Tonight we celebrate extraordinary women who are redefining the technological future of our region," she announced enthusiastically. Women who break barriers not only with their talent, but with their vision for a more inclusive world. Clara listened to inspiring stories from other nominees. A data scientist who had created algorithms to detect domestic violence. An engineer who developed affordable prosthetics. An entrepreneur who connected indigenous artisans with global markets through digital platforms. When her name was called, Clara felt a mix of pride and humility. And now we have the honor of presenting our next awardee, the presenter said. A woman who started serving tables while studying engineering and today leads one of the most important innovation teams on the continent. For her renewable energy project that has brought electricity to more than 100 rural communities. The Innovation with Social Impact Award goes to Clara Jimenez of Mendez Technologies. Applause resonated as Clara ascended the stage. Under the lights, she distinguished two figures discreetly entering through the side door. Alvaro and Sophie, who quickly sought their reserved seats. Clara received the crystal trophy, an elegant sculpture representing a woman holding a luminous sphere. She approached the microphone calmly. "Thank you for this recognition, which truly belongs to my entire team," she began, "and to the communities that trusted our technology." She paused, meeting Alvaro's eyes in the audience. "Years ago, at my university graduation, I said it wasn't love that opened the door, but effort that allowed me to stay. Today, I want to expand on that idea." Clara breathed deeply. Effort builds capabilities, but purpose gives them direction. When I met those families and communities without access to electricity, I saw in their eyes the same determination I once had, the desire to create a better future against all odds. The lights illuminated her face as she continued. Technology without empathy is just circuits and code. What transforms lives is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and ask, how can I use what I know to improve their reality? Clara spoke about her vision for a more human and inclusive technology, about the responsibility to innovate with those who need it most in mind. She concluded by looking directly at Sophie, who was watching her with admiration. True success is not measured in awards or recognition, but in the impact we leave, in the lives we touch, in the bridges we build. That is the legacy I hope to leave. As she finished her speech, the room erupted in applause. Clara descended from the stage, feeling a profound serenity. She had come a long way from that eatery where she served coffee. As she returned to her table, she saw Leticia Fuentes among the audience. After her suspension, Leticia had founded her own consulting firm, and, surprisingly, they had crossed paths at several events without hostility. Time and individual success had healed old wounds. The ceremony continued, but Clara barely paid attention. Her mind replayed the journey she had taken. The nights studying after long shifts at the restaurant, the moments of doubt, the small and large victories. The first time Sophie called her mommy. The intimate wedding in the garden of the house they now shared. When the event ended, Clara headed towards where Alvaro and Sophie were waiting for her. At 9 years old, Sophie already showed Clara's determination and Alvaro's creativity. She wore a blue dress she had chosen especially for the occasion. "You were amazing, Mom," the girl exclaimed, hugging her tightly. "Your speech was the best." "Thank you, little one," Clara smiled, kissing her forehead. Alvaro looked at her with that silent pride that always moved her. "Congratulations, my love," he said, handing her a small bouquet of sunflowers, her favorites. "You deserve it." Clara took the flowers, inhaling their familiar scent. "We deserve it," she corrected. "This is also a part of you." Several photographers approached, asking for a photo of the awardee. Clara posed with her trophy, with Alvaro and Sophie by her side. "Smile for the cameras," the photographer instructed. Just before the flash, Sophie took Clara's hand and said in a clear voice, "We're going to frame your trophy, Mom, next to our family photos." Clara smiled, feeling a fulfillment that went far beyond professional recognition. Not because she had been saved, but because she had chosen her place and fought for it, because she had built, step by step, a life that was completely her own. As they left the hotel into the starry night, Clara thought about that young woman who served tables while dreaming of finishing her degree. She wanted to tell her that everything would be all right, that her efforts would bear fruit beyond imagination. But she knew that Clara would not have wanted to know beforehand. Discovering the path, with its obstacles and surprises, was an essential part of the journey. And what an extraordinary journey it had been. "What are you thinking about?" Alvaro asked as they got into the car. Clara looked at her family, this small universe they had created together. "That my family was not found," she replied with serenity. "It was chosen, and that's the best part of my story."